pickinglessons.com. Melodic Bluegrass Slicks. There's a bit of single string in there as well, but this is great fun. We're in the key of C, although we're in standard G tuning. It works really well. There's 16 measures in that example solo that we're going to pull apart, and there's a whole bunch of licks that we can use individually and repurpose and repiece together as well. There's that great little tag on the end, bit of a shave and a haircut style tag. We're also in this lesson going to cover a bunch of melodic scales and positions. So we've got the C major scale, the major pentatonic scale, the major blues scale, all in C. And we'll look at some arpeggio positions that feature the flat 3. So that's really heavily used throughout this. And we'll talk all about that later. In a moment, we're going to check out the first 4 bars of licks, which are over the C chord here in this video. We'll also have a look at the C major scale in the melodic fashion just to get us going too. But if you head over to pickinglessons.com, you can grab yourself a copy of the chart that we're working through. So it has that example solo and all these scales and arpeggios we're going to be chatting about. In the member section there, we will continue this lesson and break down all the other lick ideas that are in here and look at the other scales and whatnot as well. You'll also have a play along and backing track of the solo once you do get familiar with it as well. All right, let's get started here, and we're going to have a look at these first 4 bars of the example solo I played, and pretty much that's all over the C chord. It's really heavily melodic. There is some single string in there as well. So we'll check out the techniques as we go through. There's a fair bit of movement. This is quite challenging to play, yeah? So we'll break it down and have a look at what's going on. These first 4 bars, that's what we have, but we're going to break it down, and each of those individual measures could be an individual C lick, which is really great. So the C chord that we're playing over, this first example, yeah, so this little melodic back and forth, and what we're featuring are some of those scale notes in C that we're going to have a look at later on, and in this case the flat 3 as well. So the flat 3 is the blue note. It's the E flat against the C chord. So here's our C. There's an E in there. We're using the E flat, so it gives us that blue note sound. Yeah, so we're pretty much doing that. If it was the major third, which would be fine, but we're going a little bluesy on it. Yeah, and so if we were to use that little lick individually, perhaps you want to resolve back to the C. So yeah, and that could be kind of cool, or move on to something else or whatever we might be doing. So you can pull these apart. So we're going to learn them all individually and then we'll run them together. So there's that first measure. Being melodic, let's have a quick chat about the right hand. So the right hand is very thumb dominant in this passage. Thumb, index, thumb, middle, yeah? So there's just a back and forth between the thumb and the fingers. The left hand there, second and first fingers, gets the job done. As we move on to the second measure, so second idea, we're again featuring that E flat. So the flat 3. This one resolves within itself, and we're starting with this roll, so the E flat to the E to the G. Yeah, so forward roll, twice through. And then as we do that last open string on the 5th string there, we're going to roll through the 2 notes we have in the scale up here. So we're moving into the A and then to the C. So resolving to the C there over the C chord. So forward roll, pretty straightforward for the fingers. Second and third fingers as you get up there, that will help what's going to happen next. Let's put these first 2 bars together. 3, 4. So obviously you could run those together as a 2-bar lick. Yeah, so we've got each of these could be pulled apart to a shorter version of itself, or we can run them together into other variations. But that 2-bar variation there is great and works really well. Once we hit that position, it's kind of a continuation. So we're going to hold that C and we're going to hold that position, and we get the 2 offbeat notes there on the C before we hammer on. We're going to hammer on from that G there on fret 8. And so as we continue through, let's perhaps play from measure 2, 3, 4. Again, it's a continuation. I've mentioned that we can pull these apart, but as you can see we're continuing this C theme over the top of the C chord at the moment. Just watch the fingering on that one. So second and third fingers you can use to hold that chord, and use your first finger back on that G there for that hammer-on. And the hammer-ons just played through twice. The fingering suggestions are all in the tablature. This is quite advanced. You might want to try some different fingering too, but certainly have a look at those suggestions and that will really help. Let's put together these three measures we have so far. So 3, 4. Up there to the C, again very heavily on the C because we're playing over the C. That's the whole idea of these licks. At the moment we're basically playing C licks, yeah, to match the C chord. We've got one more measure to go before, in the example, we do move off into a G. So this last measure over the C chord, we're coming back down to this C position. Yeah, we've got the E flat there. There's a scale tone D. We have the open G in there as well. So we're open G, slide in from the E flat to the E, back to the G. That's a great little idea as well. You can certainly feature that and play around with that. Moving on, we're going to use the E flat back to the D there. And that's a really quick grace note pull off, that one. So then we move on to the C, back to the D, back to the C, so a little melodic movement within the scale. But again, resolves back home into the C position. Remembering that your C chord is there. We'll touch on these briefly later on in the lesson, but there's a whole lot of hard stuff going on through this lesson, so it's probably a good idea to make sure you do know your C chords, you know, in all the different varying positions that we have, because then around that we can start to look at how these scale tones are used as passing notes against the chord tones. A little side note, there's so many ways of playing on a stringed instrument like a banjo or a guitar or a mandolin, any of those. We've got lots of options for the same note. C, 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 yeah? So knowing these positions around the neck is really useful. I think it's really important to know these because it's going to help you understand what's going on here, but then apply your own ideas as well. So understanding the fretboard is really important. At pickinglessons.com we've got the fretboard freedom lessons too, so you can check out that for the banjo and have a look at some of the notes over the fretboard if you're not too familiar. Let's start to wrap up this lesson. We're going to have a look through the first 4 bars of this lick. We'll just place that together first. So 2, 3, 4. So have a practice of that, start stringing that together. Understanding what's featured in there, so the C major scale we're about to learn is certainly featured in that, plus the flat 3, the blue note, which is we can look at in the major blues scale, but essentially it's just the third of the chord, so the E, yeah, the third note, C, E and G, that's your 1, 3, 5, so the E and your E flat is your flat 3. So kind of understanding the principles of that is cool. But this major scale, so the C major scale, no sharps, no flats, it works great in open tuning. That's why it's going to work in this open G tuning, I should say. So here's the scale we're going to learn. We're going to learn a melodic version up and down the neck. So that was covering all the way up to the C we had at fret 10 there, we played on string 5, all the way down to the open D. So we're covering all the available C notes within reason in this position. As I mentioned before, we have C's in multiple places. We have all the notes in multiple places. So this is a version of that scale played in the melodic way. So you could play it in the open position, for example. Yeah, so using those open tones, and we certainly use some of that, but we're looking more on a melodic up the neck. But I would really suggest the better you know the fretboard, the better this stuff's going to make sense. So let's just try that scale slowly through. So just watching positions there. Again, fingering and everything's in the tablature, so do check that out. Just have a little once through, up the neck, down the neck, and then back and resolving on C. all the C notes, all natural notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Ready, and... Just as a side note there, we can use that thumb just to help us out in this melodic way on the C. So as we come up through the scale, thumb comes over the neck there to catch that 10th fret, the C. Let's have another try. Ready, and... As we hit that low portion, it's definitely into single string. So that's just thumb, index, thumb, index, thumb, index. But that's certainly a single string moment, and we have quite a few more single string moments in the example licks as well we're going to learn. Key of C. We're in standard G tuning. It works great. It's going to be fine. There's some cool F flicks in here later on, yeah, which is going to be handy because F pops up in this open G tuning for some tunes, yeah. So we've got basically another 12 bars to learn. We've got 4 bars of G to have a look at, a whole bunch more C and some F in there as well. We've got that cool tag to learn on the end, and we'll have a bit more of a talk about these scales we're using. So the C major pentatonic scale is a variation. The C major blues scale is a variation as well. So in the member section there, we are going to break down the rest of these licks and look at these scales and arpeggio positions as well. And you can grab the tablature from the website. So pickandlessons.com. I'll see you there.